Mark Prensky is the founder and executive director of the Global Future Education Foundation, and Mark is truly an expert in education and the role of technology in education. And Mark's book, there's not many copies left, so there's some in Spanish, I believe, and some in English. So you can speak to Mark afterwards and grab a copy of the book. But I guess just to frame the conversation, education is such an important part of the future of work, because think about automation again. We mentioned potentially 10 million truck drivers in the United States alone being put out of work through autonomous vehicles. 30 to 50 million garment workers being put out of work through the sewing robot. Now, what are those people going to do? Now, it's about adaptability. Now, the reason we are the most successful species on the planet, overwhelmingly, is because we are the most adaptable. It doesn't matter what the environment is, whether it's the harshest Australian deserts or the Inuits in the north of Norway or Canada. These environments are completely different. Or agricultural communities. We can look at the opportunities around us and find solutions that work for us. And really, that's what education is the prerequisites to adaptability, is how can we actually get things done in the environment that we're living in. Now, environments are changing incredibly fast. And as 10 million truck drivers and 30 million garment workers are put out of work, they are going to have to adapt to the new world, whatever that is. Now, education, or whatever inputs into that capacity to adapt, is absolutely essential, and technology has to play a part. And I think Mark will speak a lot more about this, but I was always a self-learner. I never listened in class, but other people did listen in class. But I think we have to find ways to allow people to adapt to this incredibly rapid changing world. So Mark Prensky, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I met several of you. I look forward to meeting the rest of you. I thought that was a great an idea that just came up in the last presentation that works for you. We can replace all our truck drivers with blind people when we have the alternative cars. I thought that was a terrific idea. I'm going to talk to you this morning, let's make sure this works, about el futuro de la educación. But because my Spanish is not good enough to talk to you in Spanish, I'll talk to you in English about the future of education. And if you like this, I will be happy to send you the slides. You can send me an email, and that would be the easiest way, and I'm sure they will have them here as well. This story that I'm going to tell really has two parts, and I'm going to not spend too much time on the first part. What is happening today? Educational technology. I don't think it's worth very much. I think that that's not the place to invest, and if you think that you can make money off the backs of our kids, that's not the right thing to do either. So we have a lot of people thinking in these terms, but I'm much more interested in what's happening, emerging in the world, what's coming in the world. And I remembered in the opening remarks that Dominique made, he talked about a person like this. How much will his world have changed in 20 years? And that person is actually, or was, sitting right in the back there. That little baby there, baby's still here. It was really lovely to see. The question is, life is going to be a lot different in 20 years. So now we think a lot about tradition, we think a lot about today, and we think some about tomorrow. I know Mexico has just made some changes, but we don't spend enough time thinking about the day after tomorrow. And this is all from a guy named Peter Hinson. That's what's important to the kids. They don't care about the tradition. They care about what's going to happen in their lifetimes. And so when we do reforms, we typically go to tomorrow, and there's lots of that happening, but we don't do enough of the day after tomorrow. And that's what I really want to focus on in this presentation. And so let's think about how much this kid's world will have changed in 20 years. Because all our kids need to get to the future not equipped for the world of yesterday where we grew up, which we all know was a world of reading and writing, but equipped with the skills that allow them to thrive in a very different context of the third millennium. And I just took this picture last week. This is a girl on a date, right? The date is happening through her cell phone. I don't have no idea where the guy is. The kids need our help they need our help to become the people they want to be and that they need to be in their future, and not the people we want them to be. So when you have these ideas of telling your kids what they should do for the future, you don't really know, because we didn't grow up in that world. We all, of course, want our kids to be educated. That, I'm sure, is true for everybody in the room. But what's changing is what an education is and what it means to be educated. And that's where we really have to start thinking about some new perspectives. How can we do this? How can we unleash these kids' new power? And we're going to talk a lot about the power to make their world a better place. So my latest thinking is in these books. As we heard, we have a couple of copies outside. If you need more, you can write to me, or we can figure out how to get them if you're interested. And the point is that there's this big wall in the world between what we do today, even with all the improvements we add to it, and a better education. And what we do today is we throw darts at that wall. 21st century skills, social, emotional, standard, school choice, small classes, and especially technology these days, but they don't get through. And the reason they don't get through is something that we don't, or many people haven't understood. And I've been searching for the root causes of the malaise that we all feel with our educational systems. I looked at engagement, I looked at pedagogy, I looked at curriculum, I looked at the ends of education. I've written a book on each one of these things. But now I've moved on. I think there are two main things that I want to share with you that prevent our moving forward in the education towards the education that you talked about, Jay. The first is that we think learning is the same as education. And guess what, folks? It's not. We all talk about learning and how kids learn and how they're going to learn and can they learn with technology and all this. But learning is not the goal of education. Learning is a means to the goal of education. The goal of education is becoming a good, effective, world-improving person. That's what we want our kids to become. Good, effective, world-improving people. And if we want to do that, it turns out that today there's a better means than just sitting in a classroom and learning. It's real-world accomplishment. It's going out and doing projects that make the world a better place. Something that we couldn't do very much of when we were young, when we were in school, but the kids today can do and are doing. So that if we focus them on learning and we spend all our time looking at their grades and saying, how well are you doing, they're not going to get where they need to go. And I'll explain why as we go on. But there's something even more important than that. Even more important. And that's the true root, as far as I can see, of our educational problems. It's how we see and treat our kids. And when I say us, I mean in every country in the world just about, with very few exceptions. We disrespect them. Why do I know this? Because they tell me. We underappreciate what they can do, and we underestimate what they can do today, because we think of what we could do back then, which wasn't that much. And in fact, we often, far too often, treat our kids in school and even at home as if they were pets. Right? What do we say? Go here. Sit when I tell you. Right? Do this. Follow me. Go to the bathroom when I tell you. And finally, perform the tricks I taught you. That's what testing is. Right? we have to change this. That's the huge thing that has to change, because not only are our kids people, but increasingly they're people with extended brains through the technology, all networked together. And if you're a teacher and you look out at your class and you see extended brains all networked together, you have to do very different things for them. These kids are empowered with huge new capabilities. They can do all these kinds of things in new and better ways. And we have to learn to take advantage of this. We haven't even begun to do that. We just keep doing, as somebody lovely described, cut and paste. We go a little further. Our grandfathers did this. We did this. Our kids should do this. That's not right anymore. Because to thrive and succeed in what is now the third millennium, and that little kid back there is going to live not to the 21st century, probably to the 22nd century, we need a different education. And this is a huge transition in thinking. This is as big as going from the world is flat to the world is round. Right? That was a big transition. Or from everything, all the planets revolve around the earth, to, my God, they go around the sun. Those were huge revolutions in thinking. And we need to go through another one if we're going to get the kind of education that you say we need, and we do. But the good news is that this education is emerging. We are adaptive. We are adapting, so in places around the world, we're seeing the sprouts of this new education, and I want to share it with you. Organizations like Ashoka, which works with UBS. Organizations like Design for Change, which is now in 66 countries. Wonderful group. Schools, individual schools like High Tech High in San Diego, or the Riverside School in India, or concept schools in Brazil. These are starting to do these new kinds of things. And even the International Baccalaureate, which some of you may be familiar with, although they're very strict at the high school level, they're really starting to make changes at the primary and middle school levels. So why is this emerging, and why is it emerging now? Well, some of you, has anybody in the room read this book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions? It was a book that came out about 50 years ago. It was very influential in the science world. And what Tom Kuhn said, he introduced an idea called paradigms. And he talked about scientific revolution as the process of paradigm change. And he offered a theory of how this happens. And I think this theory applies enormously well to education today. So I'm just going to share a little bit of it with you. A paradigm is the way practitioners view the world, how the teachers look at our kids, how we look at our kids. And the prevailing paradigm defines what we do, what's normal. And normal is, we'll see, it's putting kids in classrooms. We all know what normal education is. Here's the real paradigm. We see our kids as helpless and needing to be taught before they can do anything useful in the world. And then we try to make them better individuals at a time when teamwork is really important. And we do it through classroom education with content and tests and grades and rankings. And the normal way of doing anything, science or education, works well until we get some anomalies, until things don't work. And what doesn't work today is these empowered kids. They come home from school and they say, why? My kid does this all the time. Why am I being put through this old-fashioned stuff? And so what we get is a crisis, because even if we tinker and we change and we make these things, it doesn't fit. And so we get a displacement of the conceptual network. And that's what I hope you'll leave here with, is with your mind thinking a little bit differently. And sometimes it takes a long time. In fact, it almost always takes a long time. But eventually, we get there. Hello. Okay, we get there. And the older paradigm is replaced by an incompatible new one. So here's the new paradigm that's coming. Our kids are empowered, and they need to become more empowered. They can already do things. And the goal is not just becoming a better individual, it's bettering your world. And the new process is doing real world improving projects, getting a much broader range of useful skills, and helping each kid become unique. And we're going to talk a lot more about uniqueness. It's much more than just a little refinement. That's what we're seeing around the world mostly, is the refinement. Okay, I can do this Khan Academy, all these other things. The big picture is this. The thinking has to change from education being about learning to being about becoming, from bettering yourself to bettering your world, from being empowered to learn to being empowered to take positive action, from just having passion and caring about something to being able to apply that passion, from high PISA or other rankings to getting things done, from academics to the rest of us. And finally, there's lots of people saying in education, we don't know what's coming, and we need to prepare kids for anything. And that means they have to have self-confidence and self-efficacy and lots of things like that. So let's spend time now talking about how we get there. And I call it beyond reform, because we're seeing all these reforms. How can we go beyond those reforms to a new kind of education? And going back to Kuhn, he says, when the normal tradition changes, the practitioner's perception of his environment must be re-educated. It's a new gestalt. He even talks about it's like wearing inverting glasses that turn things upside down, like this. So we need some new perspectives. And let's start with the world. No matter how much you think the world is changing, I guarantee you it's changing faster. I was shocked that nobody yesterday talked about putting chips inside people. I am sure that you're going to have to be, as a parent, deciding whether you want your kid to be chipped, and if you decide no, the kid's going to go out and do it anyway, because that's what's happening. This is the chart of human population. It was very flat and low for a very long time, and suddenly it's taken off exponentially. And that's where we are. That's innovation, and that's change. It's going through the roof. The technologies, and there are all these technologies, we heard about some of them yesterday, they're converging. That's what really counts. It's not that one technology, it's not that AI or anything else is becoming so great. It's that all the technologies are coming together at once. Something called VUCA, which maybe you've heard of, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, that they talk about a lot in the military, going through the roof. And the pace of change is accelerating. It's not just change, it's how fast the change is happening. That's getting faster and faster and faster. So we're educating our students for a very, very different world. And we're educating different students. That's what's really key here. I'm going to give you a new perspective on students, because the technology, whether they have it or they're going to have it in a few years, is giving them so many new capabilities that they're not the people we used to be. They're not little us's anymore. They're far more empowered. They're quickly becoming people, as we said, with extended brains who are all networked together. You know, that's what it means when Facebook has 2 billion people on it. And that's an experiment. We don't know what to do with 2 people on a network. We don't know how to be a node on a network, but we're learning. The kids can do infinitely more. They can collaborate in totally new ways. And I'll give you some examples. Primary school kids. This is a game called iWire. Primary school kids can help figure out the wiring of the brain. It's hard to do. It needs humans to look at some of these things. This is a game that kids in primary school can play and contribute to real science. Middle school kids can print out prosthetic hands and other parts of the body, because if you have a 3D printer, which I hope more and more of your schools will have, the instructions are already on the web in a site called Enable. But it's not enough just to print out the hand. They need to find the people who have the hands. So what do the kids do? They use their social media skills to go out and find the kids who need the hands. They give the kids, they hold these big handathons in many places. They custom make the hands for the kids who need them. Apps. We talked about using apps. Kids can make apps. I don't think there's a class in the world where there's not at least one kid who could learn from the internet how to design an app. Here are some of the apps that high school kids have made. One family in Atlanta had the cops, the police, come to their house late at night. They discovered very quickly it was a mistake, but because the family was black, they put them all through the computer to see if they had records, and the family was very offended. The 3 teenagers said, we're going to build an app to rate the police. Rate police encounters, like Yelp for the police. And they did. It's called 5.0. It's available. Bullying. Kids couldn't find in some places a table to sit at lunch where they weren't bullied. So what did a girl write? She wrote an app like Open Table that says, reserve a non-bullying table seat at lunch. And that exists. That's Sit With Us. I just heard about a 14-year-old who said, oh, facial recognition. How about if we use that to identify the people in Alzheimer's patients' lives and help them remember who those people are? She's made an app. There's an app for domestic violence. Sits at home like Alexa, and it listens for the sounds of domestic violence. And when it sees them, it calls the police. So this is what kids are doing. Here's one in Mexico. There were no recreational spaces. So the students who got upset with this, they said, we're going to create a beautiful park for kids and adults. And they did, and they made this beautiful, beautiful park. So this is just the beginning. Kids can do this all over the world. There's a database that you can get to of over 100 of these projects. Works on your cell phone, works on your computer. Lists the projects and lists the details of the projects with videos, etc. Now automation, which a couple of people have mentioned here. You have mentioned a lot, James. What do? Our kids are coming into this human-machine age. And yes, we have a big problem with the adults, but think about the kids. The key problem now is what do we keep for humans and what do we delegate to our machines? You know, humans don't calculate the tip anymore in a restaurant. They pull out the machine to do it. There are things that, more and more things that we've delegated. And what's interesting is that things that we always thought of as human, writing and reading, are becoming machine skills. Researching is a machine skill. Translating, with my respects to the translators in the booth, is becoming a machine skill. And even thinking, now that we've heard about all this AI, is becoming, in certain measure, a machine skill. And my perspective is this. Anything that 2 people can do equally well will be automated. So there's only one defense against this. There's only one thing that we can do as humans, and that's be unique. That's figure out who we are individually, uniquely, that a machine can't replace. And this is fabulous. This actually works out very well for us because every one of us is unique. We just haven't focused on that in education. We've tried to make everybody the same through education. But that's the old world. This is the new world. We need to do a much better job of figuring out how to make our kids unique and applying it to their world. And so now to conclude, I want to give you a new look at this vision of what education will become. The first part, changing view of kids. We've looked at that, right? Extended brains all networked together with huge new capabilities. Second part, the changing goals or ends of education. Not just better individuals, but a better world. Not just academic success, but becoming good, effective, world-improving people. And this is so critically important. If you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're an educator, every kid has to understand what he or she cares about at that moment, what he or she is good at, and what he or she loves to do. And if we can put those three things together for kids, they're going to succeed no matter what comes in the future. And that's what our primary and secondary schools should be about. Nobody should go to college and say, I don't know what I want to do. They should have been figuring this thing out. The means of education is changing from the learning, as we saw, to real-world accomplishment, where you get real-world improvement, where the goal is measurable positive impact on the world. Here's what education used to be and still is in most places. We put our kids together with content, good, bad, whatever content. We hope we get some learning. We hope we get some improved people. And then we put a huge bet on the table. Maybe they'll go and improve the world. Some do, some don't. Now there's a better way. The better way is to put kids together with real-world problems, starting in kindergarten, all the way through their school career. They come up with really interesting solutions, often that we haven't thought of. They get, obviously, learning with this, and we get an improved world right now from the kids who are in school. That's good. But the kicker is they become empowered, world-improving people forever. They know they can improve the world. They know how to improve the world because that's been their education. So the best predictor, if we want our kids to accomplish in the future, I heard this from a guy at IBM, the best predictor of future accomplishment is past accomplishment. And what it does for our kids is it builds their self-esteem and self-confidence. When you think you can do these things, when you think you can improve the world, you feel infinitely better about yourself. So our kids need not just the achievement that we give them in school, being at the top of the rankings, doing this, they need real world accomplishment. Change of focus is from individuals and grades and rankings and personal success to teams and world-improving projects and real-world results. That's the huge change. So that our kids become what my friends a while call solutionaries, solucionarios. What a wonderful thing to think about for our kids. It works better for the kids and it works better for the employers. Because what does Google say? We need people who can get things done. Does our education teach people how to get things done? Not really. Then come the teachers. And that's really important because teachers have an incredibly important role to play. But it's not the same role as in the past. And that's what we have to change. Because it used to be about content delivery. You were a teacher, you stood up, somebody said, you have the microphone, you deliver content. No, now the content's all on the internet. You want to learn math? Go to Khan Academy. What's happening is the teacher needs to become a coach and an empowerer of these kids. And many teachers are moving in that direction, not all of them, but that's what's happening. Remember that the main human skill that we're trying to encourage is uniqueness. So teachers need to help the kids figure out through a series of projects where they are unique, what they can do, what they can contribute to the world that nobody else can. They need not content, but what my friend, the teacher, calls trick. Trust, respect, independence, collaboration, kind. That's what the kids tell us they don't get in school. Nor do they get empathy or encouragement, or they get some, but often not enough. And that's what they say. These are not my words. These are the kids' words because I spend a lot of time talking to kids. Here's what a good teacher does. This is my friend. This is one of her ex-students talking about her. She showed me I could take my dreams as seriously as I wanted. That's what education needs to do for all our kids. And we need to help them do that. So the new job of teaching is from content delivery to coaching and empowerment. Something about technology, I don't have that much to say, except that we mostly use it for stuff we can already do. We can do all these things already, so using technology is trivial. It doesn't add value. It's not trivial that those things aren't important. It's that we don't add value through technology. The place where we add value is in doing things we couldn't do before. Connecting kids around the world, useful apps, big data, simulations, robotics, videos. That we couldn't do before. That's the technology we need to use. Not the old things in new ways, but new uses, powerful new uses to help kids improve the world. And I'll just say a word about curriculum because there's been a lot of discussion here in this country about changing it. I think this math, language, and science and social studies for everybody, that's going away. It's not that those things aren't important for some people. Of course they are. But they're going to be replaced by broader skill sets. And the things that people need in skills are not just thinking, but acting and relating and especially accomplishing. And so our curriculum is going to move much more to this kind of thing, where these are all the skills that humans have developed over years. I don't have time to share it with you, but it's in my book. And that's what we're going to have to help our kids acquire. And those are lifelong skills. So we just want to start them on the acquisition so they can continue forever. New kind of curriculum, no more courses and content. That's a very old concept. Now it's projects and skills. No more skills in advance. Maybe someday we'll need it. You know, why should you learn square roots? Because maybe someday you'll need it, right? Now it's learning things as we need them for accomplishment in the world. So let me sum up. We want all our kids to be educated. What's changing is what an education is and what it means. The kids are improving the world on their own. We need to make them more powerful. But we have to not just do the old education better, we need to move to a civilization level change in education. I call it ceviche, civilization level change, to a new educational paradigm. And that's empowerment of students, bettering their world, and real projects, a broader range of useful skills, and above all, uniqueness. This new paradigm is better for the kids because it provides them with what they really need. It's better for all of us because it liberates human potential of all the kids that have just been sitting and warehoused in our classrooms. And they need an education that empowers them further to better their world. And the wonderful news is that the world is creating this. So we're at the ground floor of a very new world to come, full of imagination, full of creativity. This is David's building that I've been using for years as an example of creativity. Now I met the creator. I'm very happy. Innovation, we talk about flying cars, entrepreneurial spirit. And ladies and gentlemen, I am a huge optimist about the future of education because I'm a huge optimist about today's kids. And I don't just mean the rich kids who have everything, I mean all kids everywhere. This is what the kids need from us. If you're a parent, that's what you should be focusing your kid on. If you're a teacher, what you care about, what you love to do, how you are unique. So let's be sure we give the kids an education that empowers them for their future. Muchas gracias. Y buena suerte.
Thanks so much. Well, thanks so much, Mark. And I really hope, that was just amazing.